KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk radio, John and Ken show. John is off on vacation. I'm here with Shannon. The John and Ken semi-regular weekly news quiz, the first of two on the show today, is coming up very soon. You can win tickets to an upcoming Dodger game. We'll also talk about the mayor of San Diego, Bob Filner, who didn't resign today. He just said he's going to go in for therapy. See you in a couple of weeks. Right now, though, we're going to talk to the mayor of San Jose, Chuck Reed, who thankfully is not involved in a scandal and is putting up a good fight. He is a Democrat and is described here a Stanford-educated lawyer, graduated from the Air Force Academy, got a master's degree from Princeton. It's quite a resume. Anyway, he made the news because he was responsible largely for getting Measure B on the ballot in San Jose to do something about public employee pensions, which he said were going to completely bankrupt the city of San Jose. They could be headed down the road of Detroit unless something was done to curb them. It passed with nearly 70% of the vote, but right away, the unions decided to challenge it. In fact, this week, the court fight began. So let's get Chuck Reed on the program. Welcome to the John and Ken Show.
Hi, Ken.
So explain to people what Measure B did with the pensions.
Measure B did several things. Primarily, it requires our current employees to pay more for their pension benefits and gives them a choice of a lower cost plan if they don't want to pay more for the benefits. So it's unusual in that it takes on the current employees, and of course we're litigating the so-called vested rights argument. Just spent 5 days in trial this week in the Superior Court with 6 lawsuits consolidated in one courtroom because unions don't want to give an inch, and they'd rather see us continue to cut services or, who cares about bankruptcy?
Explain to our listeners how bad it would get with San Jose if you continued down this road without something like Measure B.
We'd had 10 years of budget shortfalls, 10 years of balancing that budget by cutting services. So we had reached the point that we were facing what's called service delivery insolvency, which is not a term I made up, but it's what is used by International City County Managers Association. That means you have enough money to pay your bills, you just can't have enough money to provide services to your people. And we reached the point where we thought if we go any further, we're going to be in big trouble. Once you get there, if something bad happens, bankruptcy is the only choice to try to fix it. So we decided we just had to avoid that.
Yeah, it says here in one story, San Jose's pension spending rose from $73 million 12 years ago to $245 million last year.
Oh, hell, it's worse than that, Ken. It went from $73 million 10 years ago to $277 million this year because it's continuing to go up. That's the problem. It keeps going up, up, up.
Now, were you mayor when these pension deals were given out, or how did that work?
Well, I was here for some of it. You remember back in 1999, the state of California passed SB 400.
Oh, yeah, Gray Davis.
Benefits.
Yeah.
Greatly increased the cost of pensions, retroactive increases. Well, eventually that trickled down into local government, and we in San Jose end up following that path and gave our firefighters and our police officers 90% retirement benefit. Of course, some of that was given by arbitrators because we have a mandatory arbitration provision here. We settled with our cops so to avoid arbitration, but our firefighters got the 90% in arbitration. And, yeah, so I was here. I accept responsibility for mistakes that I've made. Looking back, I sure wished I had not been in a position where we did those kind of benefit enhancements. But ultimately, the arbitrators get to decide in San Jose, so we were doing the best we could.
All right. Now, the public employee unions took you to court over what? This is at odds with the state's constitution or something?
They believe it is unconstitutional for us to make our employees pay more because they contend that they have a vested right that can never be touched, a promise that they will never have to pay more for their pension benefits, which, of course, is not true. They paid more a couple years ago.
Yeah, better not be true.
Well, we had contracts with our unions 2 years ago where they actually paid more for unfunded liabilities, but they say, well, that was then, this is now, it's unconstitutional for you to make us pay more, notwithstanding the fact that most every employee in the state is going to be paying more over the next few years thanks to the state legislation last fall.
You know, a lot of cities, a lot of municipalities are watching what happens with your court case up there to see whether or not the judge will. I mean, almost 70% of your residents, your voters, went for this change, right?
Well, that's right, because our residents got it. They understood there's a direct connection between money that you spend on retirement costs is money you cannot spend on services. After 10 years of cutting services to balance the budget, the people understood, and they were very supportive of the need to do reasonable pension reform. And that's what we're trying to do in San Jose. The unions, of course, don't want to do anything. Their position is never give an inch, raise taxes.
And how much are you involved in the court battle? You're just watching mostly?
I was a spectator. I was not a witness. We had our professional staff on the stand as the witnesses, but I was there to watch and provide support and make sure that everybody understood how important this was.
Now, as a Democrat, that's why I want to emphasize this, because Democrats have a long history of public employee union support. How is this playing out for you within the party?
They're not too happy. The party is heavily influenced by the unions here in San Jose. The party pretty much controls the local party, or the unions control the local party. So I'm not their favorite guy. They don't support me. They don't help me. They spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to attack me, but that's just the way it is. It's the cost of doing business for me. I have to do the right thing without regard to those consequences.
I mean, you explain to them that there's nothing else I can do. There's just not going to be the money there to pay out all these pension benefits years into the future, but they just don't get it. They just refuse.
Well, I don't know that they don't get it. Their position is it's not fair to make us pay more. You have money that you could spend on this and raise taxes.
Yeah, but didn't you say once, I think it was you, that if it continues like this, we'll only have one employee left and they'll be cutting the pension checks?
That's exactly right. If you look at that rate of increase.
And you still believe that?
Well, I think we have slowed down the rate of increase. It might be a few more years before we get down to one employee. But, those trend lines, if you look at that rate of increase, and this isn't unique to San Jose. That rate of increase is pretty common across the state of California. It's going up, up, up. We're a little ahead of other cities in terms of where we are, but most cities in the state have trouble, and some of them are in big trouble because of these skyrocketing costs.
Yeah, but people are watching you because, this is Silicon Valley, and San Jose is no Detroit. So they're thinking, wow, if this can happen to a city like San Jose, what's going to happen to us? Well,
I think that's an important question for them to be asking themselves, and it can happen, not just to a Stockton or a Vallejo or a San Bernadino. Many other cities are spending lots and lots of money on this, and they need to get ahead of it. It takes a long time, so you got to start early. Now, before you go, one last question. What about the possibilities you get involved in some sort of state initiative about pensions? Well, having spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the solution to the problem is, let me give you the short answer. You have to bring down the cost of these benefits. The only way to bring down the cost of the benefits is to change the future accrual rates, be that the percentage or the retirement age or the COLAs. You have to change those future benefits. It's really hard in California. We're spending a lot of money defending ourselves in litigation. So I think all cities need the power of a constitutional amendment that would give us the ability to change those future accrual rates either by negotiations or at the ballot box so that people can decide whether or not they want to solve this problem. You'd be a good spokesman for this, but the questions are, where would the money come for a petition drive? Well, that's a good question, and part of what I'm doing is trying to build political support for this idea that we need an amendment, and, of course, part of that will depend on whether or not there's financial support for it. You can't run a statewide initiative without millions of dollars, and whether or not people are willing to pony up the money remains to be seen, but I'm moving ahead trying to get a final version of what might be a ballot initiative. I'm going to ask the legislature to introduce it and approve it. Of course, they probably won't. But it's in progress, and I'm working with my big city mayors and reaching out to former mayors and former governors to see if I can build political support for it. And how do you feel about your chances in court with San Jose Measure B? Well, I feel pretty good about our chances in court. We spent a lot of time planning ahead, knowing that this is California. Nothing important happens without litigation. So we had outside counsel working with us every step of the way. We spent hundreds of hours in negotiations with our union. We changed our ballot measure a half a dozen times. I think we got it right within the limits of California law. And I think a judge will weigh the evidence and follow what the Supreme Court has told us here in the last couple of years, and I think we'll win. But it's going to cost us a lot of money to do that, and small cities can't afford these kinds of expenses, so small cities need the help of a constitutional amendment. All right, Chuck, thanks for talking to me. I appreciate it. All right, Ken, take care. All right, Chuck Reed, the mayor of San Jose. Makes sense? How about that? And a Democrat. You look around other cities in California. Tony Villar is mayor of L.A., Gavin Newsom, San Francisco, Bob Filner, San Diego.
Why can't there be more Chuck Reeds? All right, listen up for this.
It's time